Okay, so get this, right? We asked an AI chatbot this seemingly simple question.
Okay.
What came first? Like the physical ability to speak
Mm.
or the brain power to actually use language?
Right.
And the answers it gave us, oh man,
Yeah.
down a rabbit hole of evolutionary history I never expected.
It really is one of those classic, chicken or the egg questions, isn't it?
It is.
Which evolved first, right? The hardware to actually speak
Yeah.
or the software to run it. But if we sort of dig into the AI's responses here,
Yeah.
I think we can trace back that potential for speech in some really surprising ways.
Okay.
And it kind of challenges those assumptions we have about, how it all came together.
Exactly. It's not as simple as just saying, oh, well, when did humans develop the vocal cords to make complex sounds?
Right.
Like, we could be carrying around the physical machinery for speech from ancestors way further back than we would think.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
almost like evolution, like baked-in potential for things that wouldn't fully emerge for millions of years.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And to unpack that, I think we need to look at some really specific examples.
Okay.
So let's start with a species that's often portrayed as our less evolved cousins,
Right.
the Neanderthals.
Okay.
They had vocal tracts that were very similar to ours and some pretty impressive brains too.
Yeah.
But could they actually speak like us?
Yeah, it's easy to just picture them as like grunting cavemen, right?
Right.
But what does the science actually say?
Well, their vocal anatomy suggests they could produce a wide range of sounds.
Okay.
So they certainly have the hardware, so to speak.
Hmm.
But when we look at their brains,
Yeah.
particularly the areas associated with language processing, there are some key differences.
You talk about Broca's and Wernicke's areas, right?
Exactly.
Those are the ones that we all learned about in high school biology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while Neanderthal brains were large and complex, those specific areas were less developed compared to Homo sapiens.
Okay.
So while they may have had the vocal cords to make the sounds, it's debatable whether they really had the brain power for that truly complex language.
Okay.
That's where the chicken or the egg question really comes in.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So, okay, but what about animals that are known for mimicking human speech?
Yeah.
Like parrots or crows,
Yeah.
they can sound so much like us, it's almost spooky.
Right.
Does that mean they have language?
Parrots and corvids.
Yeah.
They're incredibly skilled mimics.
Yeah.
And their vocal organs are remarkably versatile.
Uh-huh.
But here's the crucial distinction.
Oh,
Mimicry isn't comprehension. They can reproduce the sounds, but they don't have the sophisticated neural networks needed for true language understanding.
So they're basically masters of vocal impersonation, but not really having a conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's like a really advanced form of karaoke, but not songwriting.
A very apt analogy.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, they may use certain sounds in specific contexts, but it's not the same as having the grammar syntax, generating those new meaningful sentences like we do.
Okay, got it. So where do we go from here on our evolutionary journey?
Further back, I presume?
Okay.
Yeah, let's travel back millions of years to Australopithecus.
Okay.
One of our early human ancestors. Imagine a creature capable of upright walking, but with a brain far smaller than ours.
Okay.
What do you think their communication was like?
Well, based on what we've been talking about so far, I'm going to guess simple calls and sounds for basic social stuff and survival, right?
Right.
Maybe like the grunts and hoots of modern apes or something.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
While they might have had the potential for a slightly wider range of sounds than other animals at the time,
Right.
the brain complexity just wasn't there for structured language.
It's incredible to think about how much our brains have evolved.
Right.
That seems to be the recurring theme here.
Yeah.
Like the physical ability for sound coming first.
Absolutely. And those differences become even more striking when we compare ourselves to our closest living relatives, chimpanzees and gorillas. We share so much DNA. But the structure of our brains, especially in those key language processing areas, really sets us apart.
So even if a chimp somehow had the vocal cords to form words, their brain wouldn't be able to put them together into meaningful sentences.
Exactly.
Okay.
The neural wiring for things like grammar, syntax, abstract thought, that's what really sets human language apart.
Okay, my mind is starting to bend a little bit here, but I'm ready to go even further back in time.
Right.
What comes next, dinosaurs?
Not quite dinosaurs, but we're getting closer. Let's journey to the Permian period.
Okay.
Over 250 million years ago, we're going to meet the therapsids.
Therapsids?
Sometimes called mammal-like reptiles.
Hold on, mammal-like reptiles? That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right?
And their larynx, does that mean they could talk?
Well, it suggests that they may have been capable of producing a wider variety of sounds than other reptiles of their time.
Right.
But again, their brains were still pretty basic by mammalian standards.
Okay.
So again, we see that potential for sound, but not yet the cognitive power to turn it into language.
Right.
Remember, evolution works in stages, building on what came before.
It's like evolution was laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't know what the final structure would be.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so are there any other examples of these early creatures with surprising sound-making abilities?
Oh, there are.
Okay.
Because I'm starting to see a pattern here. You're catching on quickly. Let's jump to the Triassic period.
Okay.
Around 240 million years ago to meet the archosaurs.
Archosaurs.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Because this group includes the ancestors of both birds and crocodiles.
Wait, birds and crocs
I know.
share an ancestor.
Isn't that wild?
That's wild.
Yeah.
And what about these archosaurs? What do they sound like? Were they singing?
Yeah.
Bellowing? What?
Well, it's impossible to know for sure, of course.
Right.
But we do have evidence that suggests they had these early adaptations in their respiratory systems that could allow for a greater range of vocalizations. But just like with the therapsids, their brains were still very simple, lacking that specialization needed for complex communication.
So we're seeing a lot of potential for sound.
Yeah.
But the brain power for language seems to be a much later development.
It seems that way.
Where do we go from here, even further back?
You're up for a challenge.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, let's take a giant leap back.
Okay.
To the Cambrian explosion.
Right.
Over 500 million years ago.
Wow.
Picture a world teeming with these bizarre early life forms. Among them were Pikaia and Hyquicthys.
Whoa.
Some of the very first vertebrates.
Whoa, vertebrates. So we're talking about the very, very distant ancestors of all animals with backbones.
Yes.
Including us.
Yes.
Did these little guys even have brains?
They did, but think more like a basic spinal cord.
Okay.
And some rudimentary neural structures.
Right.
They were a long way from having the brain power for even simple communication, let alone speech. But they represent a crucial step in the evolution of the nervous system, right? Which would eventually give rise to the complex brains we have today.
It's mind-boggling to think our brains evolved from such humble beginnings.
I know, it's pretty remarkable.
But it really reinforces that idea of building upon existing structures, right?
It does.
What's next on our evolutionary trek back to the origins of speech?
Let's fast forward a few hundred million years and meet a truly iconic creature.
Okay.
Tiktaalik.
Tiktaalik.
This fishapod, as it's often called, lived around 375 million years ago.
Okay.
It represents a pivotal transition from water to land.
Yeah, Tiktaalik. I remember that fossil.
You've probably seen it in museums.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part fish, part land animal.
Yeah.
Really remarkable.
But was its brain any closer to being able to handle language? I mean, it had lungs and limbs, but was it any smarter than a fish?
Well, Tiktaalik's brain, while more advanced than those of its earlier vertebrate ancestors, was still very basic.
Okay.
It had the hardware for navigating both water and land.
Right.
But its neural development wasn't anywhere near ready for complex communication.
So, again, we see the physical changes outpacing brain development.
Yeah, it seems to be a bit of a theme here.
But could Tiktaalik make any sounds at all?
It likely made simple sounds, maybe grunts or hisses, primarily for survival.
Okay.
But true vocal communication, as we understand it, is still a long way off.
I'm starting to grasp the vastness of evolutionary time here.
Yeah.
These small changes accumulating over millions of years.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
It really is. But when do we start seeing hints of actual vocal communication emerging?
Let's turn our attention to the early tetrapods.
Tetrapods.
The first four-limbed vertebrates to really venture onto land.
Okay.
Now, these creatures, while still primitive, may have been among the first to develop vocal sacs.
Vocal sacs, now we're talking. What were those used for?
Think of them as early amplifiers,
Okay.
allowing for louder and more varied sounds.
Okay.
This was a crucial step towards the evolution of more complex vocal communication.
Yeah.
Remember, language as we know it didn't just appear overnight.
Right.
It evolved gradually, building upon those earlier adaptations.
This is also fascinating.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how that potential for speech might have been present in our ancestors long before they could actually speak.
Right.
How does that work from an evolutionary standpoint?
That brings us to a key concept in evolutionary biology.
Okay.
Exaptation.
Exaptation. Okay.
Yeah, so exaptation
Tell me more.
is the process where evolution repurposes existing structures
Mm-hmm.
for new functions.
Okay.
In other words, a trait that evolved for one purpose
Right.
can later be co-opted for something completely different.
Okay.
It's like evolution is this master tinkerer, always finding new uses for old parts.
I think I'm starting to get it, but can you give me a concrete example?
Sure.
Because this is where it gets really mind-blowing, right?
Absolutely. Let's consider our larynx.
Okay.
Our voice box.
Uh-huh.
It originally evolved for breathing and preventing food from going down the wrong pipe.
Right.
But over time, it was exapted for vocalization.
Okay.
And eventually, refined for the complexities of human speech.
So our voice box wasn't originally meant for speech at all.
Not at all.
It was a pre-adaptation already there, but being used for something else.
Yeah.
And we see this throughout evolutionary history, right?
We do.
Remember Tiktaalik, our fishapod friend?
Yes.
The bones in its fins, originally used for swimming,
Right.
were actually pre-adapted to evolve into limbs for walking on land.
Exactly.
So fins weren't originally designed for walking,
No.
but they already had the right stuff to become legs.
It did.
That's incredible.
It is. And the same principle is at work in our brains, too.
Right.
Early brains had simple circuits for basic survival behaviors.
Right.
But over time, those circuits became more complex, more interconnected, and capable of processing information in more sophisticated ways.
And that's what eventually led to the amazing brain power that we humans have today, right?
It is.
It makes you wonder what potential might be hidden within us right now, just waiting for the right conditions to emerge.
That's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
It really is.
What seemingly simple traits or behaviors might be the precursors to something truly extraordinary down the line.
This deep dive has already changed the way I think about evolution, It's not just about slow, gradual change.
Yeah.
It's about those unexpected leaps,
Right.
repurposed structures,
Yeah.
and that potential hiding in plain sight.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that the story of life on Earth is still being written.
Yeah.
We're part of an ongoing process.
Right.
Full of surprises and possibilities.
I can't wait to explore more. But for now, I think we need to give our listeners a moment to process all this.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Even the most complex brains need time to digest new knowledge.
We'll be back soon to continue our exploration of the surprising truth about speech evolution.
We will.
Stay tuned, folks.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the evolution of speech.
It's been quite a journey so far, hasn't it?
It has.
From Neanderthals to those remarkable fishapods, we've traced the very beginnings of vocalization back through the eons.
It really highlights how the ability for complex communication like ours didn't just magically appear.
Exactly. It's not a simple progression, right?
Right.
It's more like evolution was playing around with possibilities, building upon existing structures in these unexpected ways.
That brings us back to that fascinating concept of exaptation.
Yes.
Evolution repurposing existing traits for new functions.
Yes.
It's like nature is this brilliant tinkerer, always finding new uses for old parts.
I love that analogy. It's like rummaging through your junk drawer and you find the perfect solution to a problem you didn't even know you had.
Exactly. Okay, I'm getting the concept, but I need more examples to really solidify it.
Okay.
Hit me with your best exaptation stories.
Okay, well, let's consider feathers.
Okay.
Initially, they evolved in dinosaurs, likely for insulation or display purposes, even millions of years later.
Yeah.
Those same feathers became crucial for flight in birds.
So feathers went from keeping dinosaurs warm to helping their their descendants soar through the skies.
Exactly.
That's evolution being resourceful.
Precisely.
Wouldn't you say?
And here's another example. The swim bladder in fish.
Okay.
It first evolved as an organ for buoyancy control.
Right.
But in some fish,
Yeah.
it was modified to become this rudimentary lung,
Okay.
enabling them to breathe air.
From floating to breathing.
I know.
That's incredible. It really shows how evolution can take these
right.
unexpected detours, right?
Yeah.
Adapting existing features to overcome these new challenges.
It highlights the incredible flexibility
Yeah.
and adaptability of the evolutionary process, right?
Right.
It's not always about inventing something entirely new,
Yeah.
but rather just finding clever ways to repurpose what's already there.
So if we apply this concept of exaptation to speech, could it be that the potential for complex communication was simmering beneath the surface for a long time?
That's a very astute observation.
Okay.
Those early vocal sacs we discussed in tetrapods,
Right.
the ones that amplified sound,
Right.
while they may not have been used for anything remotely resembling language at the time,
Yeah.
they laid the foundation for those later innovations.
It's almost as if evolution was setting the stage
Yeah.
without knowing what play would eventually be performed on it.
A wonderful way to put it. And if we consider those neural circuits in early brains that controlled basic survival behaviors over vast stretches of time, they became more complex,
Right.
more interconnected, capable of processing information in increasingly sophisticated ways.
Eventually leading to the incredible brain power that we humans possess today.
It really makes you wonder.
It does.
What potential might be hidden within us right now?
Yeah.
Just waiting for the right circumstances to unlock it, right?
Right.
Perhaps something we consider mundane today could be the seed for something extraordinary down the line.
This whole deep dive has been a masterclass
Oh, good.
in rethinking evolution. It's not just about slow, gradual change. It's about those unexpected leaps, repurposed features.
Yeah.
And that hidden potential lurking everywhere.
And it reminds us that the story of life on Earth is far from over.
Right.
You know, we are part of this
Right.
ongoing narrative.
Yeah.
And who knows what fascinating adaptations the future holds.
Now that we've established that foundation of exaptation, let's bring it back to the evolution of speech.
Okay.
How did this concept specifically contribute to us being able to communicate the way we do?
That's where things get particularly interesting. Think about the physical structures involved in speech.
Okay.
Our tongues, teeth, lips, even our noses.
Yeah.
They all play a role.
They do.
But these structures didn't evolve specifically for speech. They were originally for eating, breathing, sensing our environment.
So just like with the larynx and the vocal sacs, these structures were co-opted for a new purpose.
Our tongues, for example, were initially just for manipulating food in our mouths.
Right.
But their dexterity and fine motor control turned out to be perfectly suited for shaping the sounds of speech.
And our teeth, originally for chewing, now help us to produce sounds like T and D.
Precisely. And let's not forget our lips. So crucial for producing sounds like P and B. They originally evolved for suckling and sealing our mouths.
Yeah.
But their flexibility proved to be a real boon for speech.
It's amazing to think that something as simple as breathing could have played a role in the evolution of speech.
Indeed. Our ability to control our breath is essential for producing those long, complex sentences.
Right.
This control likely evolved for regulating body temperature, optimizing oxygen intake.
Right.
But it became this critical component of our vocal abilities.
It seems like evolution was piecing together a puzzle, using whatever pieces were available.
And that's the beauty of exaptation.
Right.
It allows for innovation by recombining those existing traits in these novel ways. It's like evolution is constantly experimenting.
Yeah.
And sometimes those experiments result in something truly remarkable, like human language.
But it wasn't just about physical structures, right?
Right.
Our brains also had to evolve to handle the complexities of language.
Absolutely. And this is where things get really intriguing.
Okay.
The human brain is a remarkable organ.
It is.
Capable of processing information
Right.
and generating meaning in ways that no other animal can match. But remember, our brains didn't start out this way.
Right.
They evolved from simpler structures, right?
Right.
Gradually acquiring new capabilities over millions of years.
So how did our brains make that leap from basic survival instincts to abstract thought and symbolic communication? That's
the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And while we don't have all the answers, we can trace some fascinating clues in the fossil record and through these comparative studies of different animal brains.
Okay.
One key area to focus on is the neocortex, the outermost layer of the brain. That's responsible for those higher level cognitive functions.
Okay.
Like language, reasoning, and decision making.
The neocortex is what really sets humans apart from other animals, right?
It's certainly a major distinguishing feature.
Yeah.
Our neocortex is proportionally much larger than that of any other primate, and it's incredibly complex. With billions of neurons interconnected in these intricate networks. But here's the thing: the neocortex didn't just appear out of thin air.
Right.
It evolved from simpler structures, gradually expanding and becoming more sophisticated over time.
So how did exaptation shape the evolution of the neocortex?
Yeah.
Did existing brain structures get repurposed for new functions?
That's precisely what happened.
Okay.
As our ancestors faced new environmental challenges and social complexities, natural selection favored individuals with brains that could process information more efficiently.
Right.
And adapt to changing circumstances.
Right.
Over time, existing neural circuits were modified and repurposed, leading to the emergence of new cognitive abilities, including those essential for language.
Can you give me a specific example of how this might have worked?
Let's consider the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain right behind your forehead. This area is crucial for planning, decision making, and inhibiting impulsive behaviors in our early ancestors. The prefrontal cortex was likely involved in basic survival functions like foraging for food, avoiding predators.
So how did it become involved in language?
Well, as social groups became more complex, the ability to communicate effectively became increasingly important for survival and reproduction. Right. Individuals who could understand and respond to social cues, cooperate with others, and even deceive their rivals had a selective advantage.
Right.
So over time, the prefrontal cortex was co-opted for these higher level social functions, which laid the groundwork for the development of language.
So our ability to plan a hunting expedition and our ability to craft a persuasive argument both stem from the same neural circuitry.
It really is, and this highlights the interconnectedness of different cognitive abilities and how evolution can repurpose those existing structures for new function. In these surprising ways. The evolution of the neocortex wasn't just about adding new parts. It was about rewiring and reconfiguring those existing circuits to create something entirely new and more powerful.
It's like taking an old computer and upgrading its software to handle more complex tasks.
Yes.
But in this case, the software is our brains. And the upgrade took millions of years of evolutionary tinkering.
A brilliant analogy.
Thanks.
And just like with software updates, each new adaptation built upon the previous version, gradually increasing the complexity and the processing power of our brains.
And that allowed us to develop abstract thought, symbolism, and ultimately the rich, nuanced language that defines us as humans.
So while the physical structures for sound were evolving, our brains were also evolving, creating that that cognitive software, so to speak,
Right.
needed to turn those sounds into meaningful communication.
Precisely. The two processes were intertwined,
Yeah.
each influencing the other.
Right.
In this complex dance of coevolution.
Yes, yes.
This intricate interplay between biology and behavior is what ultimately led to the emergence of language.
I agree.
One of the most remarkable and defining characteristics of our species.
This has been an incredible journey so far.
It has.
But for now,
Yeah.
we need to give our listeners a little break to process all this information. It's
yeah, it's a lot to digest.
Indeed. We'll be back soon to wrap up
Okay.
our exploration of the surprising truth
Okay.
about speech evolution.
Okay.
Until then,
Yeah.
keep those brains buzzing with the wonders of exaptation.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the evolution of speech. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Tracing those origins of vocalization back hundreds of millions of years.
We have. And we've learned that the story of speech is far more intricate than we might have initially imagined, right?
Right.
It's not a simple linear progression,
Yeah.
but rather this tapestry woven from countless threads, those adaptations,
Right.
repurposed structures, and that potential just lying dormant,
Right.
waiting for the right evolutionary moment to emerge.
That concept of exaptation, right? Where evolution is repurposing those existing traits for new functions.
Yeah.
It's really shifted my whole perspective.
It's a testament to the creativity.
It is.
And resourcefulness of the evolutionary process, isn't it? And it makes you wonder what other hidden potential might be lurking within us.
Right.
Just waiting to be unlocked.
Exactly, yeah. It's like we're carrying around this toolbox full of possibilities passed down from our ancestors.
Right.
But here's the big question.
Okay.
What does all of this mean for us, like here and now?
Right.
How does understanding the deep evolutionary history of speech actually impact our lives today?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
And when we grasp that vast evolutionary history of speech,
Yeah.
it gives us this whole new perspective on our own communication abilities.
Okay.
It highlights just how complex and interconnected
Right.
language, the brain, and the body truly are.
So it's not just about the words we speak,
Right.
but that entire biological and evolutionary context that makes speech possible.
Precisely. And this understanding can have ripple effects across so many different fields: linguistics, psychology, even artificial intelligence.
Okay, break that down for me.
Okay.
How does this deep time perspective actually influence those fields?
Well, for linguists, it deepens our understanding of how languages themselves evolved and diversified over time.
Okay.
It helps us trace the roots of grammar, syntax, and even the very structure of human thought.
And for psychologists, I can see this having implications for how we understand the human mind.
Absolutely. It sheds light on the intricate relationship between language, cognition, and social behavior.
Yeah.
It can help us understand how our brains actually process language, how we learn to speak, and even how communication shapes our relationships and interactions.
What about AI? How does understanding the evolution of speech inform the development of artificial intelligence? That seems like kind of a leap.
It might seem like a leap, but it's a fascinating area of exploration. By understanding how natural systems evolved these complex capabilities like speech.
Right.
It gives us these insights into designing more robust and adaptable AI systems that can learn, evolve, and even surprise us with their emergent properties.
So studying the distant past could actually hold the key to creating truly intelligent machines in the future.
It really speaks to the interconnectedness of knowledge and the power of interdisciplinary thinking, right? By bringing together insights from biology, evolution, linguistics, computer science, we can unlock these new frontiers in our understanding of both ourselves and the world around us.
This entire deep dive has been a truly transformative experience.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for the miracle of human speech. And the incredible journey that brought us here.
It highlights the importance of curiosity, exploration, and always being open to new perspectives, right?
Right.
After all, evolution is a story that's still being written.
It is.
And who knows what incredible chapters lie ahead.
Well said. And to our listeners, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep marveling at the wonders of the natural world. Who knows what hidden potential you might discover, both within yourself and the world around you.
Right.
What seemingly mundane ability we take for granted today might hold the key to our future evolution. What will our descendants look back on and marvel at the way we look back at Tiktaalik and those first vocal sacs? It's a question worth pondering.
It is. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world and beyond.